melo, amalo onye dị mma na onye dị njọ. Asị na anya na-afụ obi, asị na anya na-afụ ime obi.
Once upon a time, there lived a man named Agunna. Agunna was married to Dubem. Agunna had 4 daughters, although his first daughter was from his first wife, Uju. Uju had died giving birth to Amaka. Amaka was a beautiful and smart girl. She was hardworking and obedient to her parents. Amaka helped her stepmother Dubem around the house and on the farm. Amaka, unlike her younger sisters, was not married. At first, she did not think it would be difficult for her to marry, as she was beautiful, hardworking, and humble. She did not have high expectations. Marrying a farmer whom she could build with was okay for her. She did not wish to marry a rich man. But as the years passed, she realized that it was going to get harder for her to get married as she was getting older. Every year, there was a festival that was held where all the young maidens ready for marriage were presented. They would dance in the crowd, indicating that they were ready to marry. The problem was, the older Amaka got, the older she became for the festival. She was now too old to participate in the dancing. She could attend the festival, but she was not allowed to dance as she was now called an old maiden. This made Amaka very sad. All she ever wanted was to marry and have her own children. All her sisters were married. It was remaining only her. Her father and stepmother were always encouraging her not to give up. She was a beautiful girl. Any man would be lucky to have her, they would say. Her parents had even arranged suitors for her. Her stepmother had gone as far as getting many suitors for Amaka, but no one wanted to marry her, saying that she was too old and had passed childbearing years. Word began to spread, and people began to gossip, saying that Amaka must be a bad person. Look at it now. Why won't she get married if not that she has a very bad character? How is it that no man has ever come to her father for her hand in marriage? It is not normal. Something there is wrong. Some will say maybe she's arrogant. Others will say maybe she's pretending that she's good, but inside she's evil. Others went as far as saying that she did have a suitor at one time. She gave her virginity to him, but he left her, and now nobody wants her. These rumors did not help Amaka's case at all. As you can imagine, the whole ordeal was too much for Amaka. She wanted to marry. She wanted to have her own children. She was humble and not arrogant. She was hardworking and not lazy. She came from a good home. She had a good background. Why is her own case different? Every woman in her age grade were already married. Why her? Amaka's only source of joy was singing and dancing. When she was younger, she would partake in all the festivals, dancing and singing. Now that she was old, she could not. So what she would do is that she would hide close to the festival and dance to the music. She would sing and dance until the music came to an end. She loved to dance. So the following week, during the Eke festival, between 5 neighboring kingdoms, she hid at her usual spot and then began to dance. Many young beautiful maidens and men had come seeking life partners. No one is checking for me, Amaka said to herself, so she was free to dance in her spot. From a short distance was a man who was standing and watching her so intently. He watched as Amaka danced and sang. He liked her voice. Suddenly, the music stopped. The festival had come to an end. Amaka stopped dancing and turned to leave, and that is when she saw the man standing at her back. He was smiling. "What is it? What are you doing here?" she shouted. "How long have you been standing here?" The man did not answer, and instead he asked, "Why did you stop? Please keep singing. Amaka did not answer him. She just turned and left. She began to walk towards her home. To her surprise, the man kept following her. Please stop following me, Amaka said. Go away. But the man did not. He kept walking beside Amaka. But here, look, you dropped your beads while you were dancing. Immediately, Amaka stopped and turned. In his hands were her beads, the new ones her father had given her. She grabbed it from his hand and thanked him. She turned to leave, but the man stopped her. What is your name? He said. Amaka hesitated, but she said her name. He said his name was Afam and he had come to the festival to find a bride. Then you're going the wrong way, Amaka said. Go back the way you came. Although the festival is over, I am sure there are still maidens around. You are sure to meet one. And with that, she turned. But I have met the one that I want, the man responded. He said this while looking at Amaka. Amaka was not a child. She understood what he meant, but she was getting very upset. How old are you? She asked him. At Amaka's age, his answer meant two things. Either he was older than her, which meant that he wanted her as a second wife, or he was younger than her, which meant he was most likely supposed to marry someone younger. The question surprised Afam, but he said he was 50 years old. 50, Amaka said in her head. That means he has a wife and definitely has children. And here he is looking for another bride. Anyway, it is according to tradition. A man can take as many wives as he wants. But for Amaka, she did not want to be a second wife. Amaka then said, I will advise you to go back the way you came. Go towards the festival. Please do not waste my time. Or better still, go back home to your wife and children. I do not have time for games. Before Amaka could turn and leave, the man responded and said, My wife was killed. Amaka froze. What did you say? Afam explained that his wife and son had been killed by a strange disease that swept the kingdom. No one knew what caused it or what the cure was, just that it affected a lot of people in the kingdom. Coming to this festival was his first time coming out to socialize with the world and engage with others. His voice was so pained and he seemed so sad. Amaka felt so much pity for him. Maybe I was too harsh. They talked for a few minutes as she walked back home. Then a few minutes turned to hours, and then hours turned to days, and then days turned to weeks. Before long, both of them were in love. Amaka was so happy. Who would have thought that now that she was 45, that she would find a love that made her feel so young? They had been seeing each other for 2 months now, and she was so happy. One day, before she left to see her beloved Afam, she prepared a meal for her father and gave it to him. Her father noticed that she was cheerful and singing. These days, she seemed more happier. What is happening, my daughter? He asked. Amaka laughed and said nothing. Papa, here, this is your food. Eat, and I will come back and prepare your dinner. And with that, she left. She met Afam at the usual spot, but this time, he had a different talk. He wanted to marry her as soon as was possible. He wanted his people to come and see her family according to tradition. Amaka was overjoyed. Her dream was finally coming true. But she remembered something. Throughout this time, she had never told Afam her true age. Men of his age from her tribe would usually go for younger maidens. Women that were 18, 20, or at most 25. How can she tell him that she was 45? And then at 45, one was considered past childbearing age. What can she do? She wanted her own children, her own family. What if she tells him now and he abandons her? Oh my God, what can I do? She said. Then she had a thought. She would tell her stepmother. Dubem would know what to do. She did not give Afam an answer, although he looked disappointed. He knew that Amaka had to agree. If she did not agree to marry him, then he could not meet with her parents. So he let her go home, telling her that she had only 1 week to think. He could not wait longer than a week. As Amaka walked back home, she kept thinking of what to do. She had to tell her stepmother. Her stepmother would know what to do. When she got home, she saw people outside her house. They all seemed sad, with a long face. Some were crying. What is it? Is my father's house now a crying place? She said. She walked past them and entered the compound. There, at the center of the compound, was her stepmother and sisters. They were crying. They were wailing. In front of them was the dead body of her father. She screamed. What happened? What happened? Papa, stand up! Papa, stand up! Amaka cried. What type of joke is this? Papa, stand up! Stand up, Papa! Then, from nowhere, her stepmother, Dubem, jumped on her. She beat Amaka, beat her, punched her, scratched her. Amaka screamed in pain. You witch, her stepmother said. I knew you were a witch the moment I entered this house. But I did not believe it, her stepmother said. Look at it now, you have killed my husband. You shameless woman. Look, you have poisoned him. Throughout the beatings, the only word that stuck to Amaka's head was poison. Poison. He was poisoned? By whom? She asked herself. What happened? Amaka shouted, freeing herself from her stepmother. What do you mean what happened, you witch? You good-for-nothing child. After all your father has done for you, which father will allow an old maiden like you stay in his house? He always encouraged you and tolerated your nonsense. See it now. See it. Is this how you repay his kindness? See, let me warn you. Go back into your witch coven and bring my husband back immediately. All this was not making sense to Amaka. How is it that her father, the man she saw earlier today, who was laughing with her, is now dead? Amaka was immediately taken by the royal guards. It was during this time that she was told that her father had died by poison. The Ezemon had revealed that someone had given Aguna something to eat. That thing was poisoned. The last food that Aguna ate was the food his daughter Amaka had prepared. Amaka was to be beheaded in 2 weeks' time. Amaka cried and cried and cried. Not for herself, but for her father. Her father had loved her so much. He did all he could to make Amaka happy. He would always encourage her, saying that her own husband would come. Why now? Why did he have to go this way? She cried. The next day, to Amaka's surprise, she saw Afam. Afam came to her prison to see her. She refused to talk to him or look at him. Afam tried all he could, but she would not speak to him. And so he left. He did not return again. It was now 2 days to her beheading. None of her sisters or stepmother had come to see her. Amaka felt sad, but she believed that it was better this way. Then the night before she was to be beheaded, Afam came again. This time Amaka looked at him. She wanted to remember his face before she was killed. But Afam was speaking. He was asking her something. Amaka had to listen to him. When you gave your father the food, he said, did you give him palm wine? Palm wine. Palm wine was a drink that her people took. They drank it while they ate, or they drank it on its own. Amaka was surprised that he would ask that. She said no. She had given her father food and water. She did not give him palm wine before she left. Who else was there in the house? Afam asked. No one, Amaka said. Just me, Mama, and Papa. My sisters are all married. But wait, as I was leaving, I saw my sister Nkechi and her husband Chigozie coming. They did not see me, but I saw them from afar, and I knew that they were heading towards Papa. But what does that have to do with anything? She asked. Afam did not respond. He stood up and left. Amaka was surprised. But tomorrow, she was to be killed. Once money came, Amaka was ready to go to be with her ancestors. But to her surprise, once she was let out of her prison, she saw Afam. He was standing next to the king. Afam was wearing royal garments, as if he was a member of the royal family. Amaka was confused. What was happening here? She said. Today she was to be beheaded. Why was the king standing before her? Why was Afam here? Next to Afam was her stepmother and sisters. They were crying and begging for her forgiveness. I do not understand, Amaka said. Afam responded. He explained that he did not believe that the woman he had fallen in love with was capable of murder. So he had looked closely at the events that occurred that day. It was revealed that after Amaka had left her father that day, Chigozie and Nkechi had stayed with Agunna. While Nkechi went into the house to stay with her mother, Chigozie stayed outside with Agunna, his father-in-law. He poured him a cup of palm wine for him to drink while he ate. Afam was able to retrieve both the cup and the calabash that Agunna ate from that day. The herbalist confirmed what Ezemo had said. Agunna was poisoned. However, residue of the poison was on the cup. The poison used was from the lily flower. The flower was very poisonous. Residue of this flower was still on the cup, the herbalist said. It was the wine that poisoned Agunna, not the food. So now the question was, why would Chigozie poison the palm wine he gave his father-in-law? In the Aguma kingdom, a man like Agunna, his wealth would go to his son-in-laws, not his daughters. He had no sons and only daughters. His daughters could not inherit his wealth, only their husbands. Chigozie had initially approached Nkechi, thinking that Nkechi was the oldest daughter of Agunna. He wanted to marry her because of her father's wealth. Agunna was a wealthy man. But once he was introduced into the family, he quickly realized that it was Amaka who was the oldest, and he changed his target. However, Amaka rejected him, saying that after all, he was her sister's suitor. She, at this time, Amaka, had her own suitors and did not want to have any association with Chigozie in any way. This angered Chigozie. So he used black magic to stop men from coming for Amaka's hand in marriage. He married Nkechi because she was already pregnant for him. But as years passed, Chigozie began to realize that Agunna loved Amaka too much. Agunna still kept his wealth for himself in hopes that Amaka would marry and he would transfer everything to her husband. It was as if he did not recognize that Chigozie was his first son-in-law. Now, desperate for Agunna's wealth, Chigozie had planned to poison his father-in-law and blame it on Amaka. This way, he could get rid of both of them. And by tradition, all the wealth would go to him as the first son-in-law. What Chigozie did not anticipate was the love that Afam had for Amaka, and that Afam was the king of the Oji village. He had resources and wealth to fish out the true murderer. Afam never believed the rumors that Chigozie had started years ago that Amaka had lost her virginity, nor was he dissuaded by her age. He knew that the person he loved was not capable of killing anyone, let alone her father. So using all he had, he was able to prove that Chigozie was the true culprit. Saying that he had no other option, Chigozie confessed, and he was banished from the kingdom. Afam and Amaka became husband and wife, king and queen over the Oji kingdom, and in 1 year she had triplets. Thank you so much for listening to another episode. If you liked it, please subscribe, like, comment, share. Thank you to those who have subscribed. Thank you to those who have supported. Until next time, goodbye.